Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. I'm Fred and I'll be your host. Today I'll be commenting over episode 1 of Fooly Cooly. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, Fooly Cooly is, in my mind, a very complicated anime. I feel nostalgic about it, even though I never watched it when it came out. In fact, I only watched it recently, but I don't know. It makes me think. Visually, I think it's a very beautiful anime. You know, it's got nice watercolor artwork in the backgrounds. I'm always a fan of that, the traditional cell animation. I really like the characters too. You know, it's strange because I see a little bit of myself in each of them. But you know, it's a coming of age sort of thing. Man. You know, of all the characters, I think I can really relate to Naoto. Wanting to grow up and all that. Growing up is tough. Having responsibility is tough. Never been molested by an older girl, though, so I guess that's where the similarities end. I guess something else about Fooly Cooly that appeals to me is just the sense of melancholy. Everything's ordinary, nothing exciting happens. You know, in many ways, life is like that, and it's not so bad all the time. I think it's better to have a boring life than a life fraught with problems. Really dig the soundtrack. The Pillows did a good job. Man, the look of betrayal on his face when she buys a drink, that is palpable disdain. And here we get the first glimpses of what I believe is a minor plot point later. About Naoto's older brother leaving for America. This is another thing I really like about Fooly Cooly. I really dig that Rickenbacker bass guitar. Truly, there are a few bass guitars better than the Rickenbacker 4001. I believe that's the model that's based off of. I think this whole sequence about Naoto being called Taro, I'm pretty sure that's a joke that doesn't really translate into English very well. It's kind of like calling him John Doe, I guess. I don't know. That's for wiser men than me. Now this scene right here, I'm pretty sure like the whole thing about this scene is that Studio Gainax is messing around with some new technology that allowed them to do these quasi three-dimensional spinning scenes. Yeah, just like that, they've already destroyed the fourth wall. You know, there's something nice about that. The sense of humor they keep on this show, I dig it. Man, that's really gotta hurt. Those Rickenbacker bases were built solid. Like, that would kill a man. That's a profound line. A stupid adult who doesn't know how to grow up. I remember thinking thoughts like that sometimes. Now, as an adult, I realize being a kid is truly better. Now, here we have some complex symbolism, I think. You know, obviously, it's symbolic of popping a boner. You know, puberty, coming of age kind of stuff. Not super subtle. All kinds of innuendo here. This brings me back to the good old bad days of middle school and high school. Nosy classmates, man. I think there's a nice dynamic between Naoto and Haruko early on. You know, sort of a twist on that manic pixie dream girl archetype. You know, I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall at all the meetings where Fooly Cooly was conceived and written. I'm curious about the design decisions behind the Rickenbacker base. I dig it, but I just wonder why that, not something like a Fender Stratocaster. A Stratocaster or a Les Paul, something like that. Another iconic guitar. I mean, Rickenbackers are right up there, but, you know. What friends? That... That's something that cuts deep, you know? If you don't have friends. I think that's another theme of Fooly Cooly. Isolation. Loneliness. There's the sound of the airliner in the background again. I guess this is one thing I really can't relate to. I don't have an older brother. I am the oldest brother. So I suppose my younger siblings would know better than I about feelings like this when I moved out and got my own job. This is a sequence I really like, personally. I've never seen anything like it in any other anime, and I just think it's interesting. Because they're emulating the style of manga, but it's still, you know, semi-animated. You know, it's... I don't know. I think it's utterly unique. I've never seen anything else like it, and I think it's absolutely interesting, if only for a small sequence. Here we learn another little bit about the plot. Because Naoto's brother's gone, the other girl just hangs out with Naoto. Almost as if he's the last resort. That's a crappy feeling, to be a last resort for someone else. Or a second choice. You know, I don't know how they could have possibly animated the sequence any other way. It's so... The contrast between the high energy of the scene and the static images of the manga, I think it provides a nice contrast. And here's Haruko seemingly talking to herself. You know, it's easy to write off as her just being eccentric along with everything else at this point. No can do. Can't sleep on the top bunk. That's his brother's. Can really feel the anger and the jealousy in that line. There's something very human about these interactions. I think that's part of what gets me every time. It's like real people talking. The dad's a pretty interesting character from what I recall about Fooly Cooley. He seemed kind of like a mainly comic relief, but there's an undercurrent of something else going on. Never knows best. I have no idea what that means. I can't interpret that. I don't know. Like a lot of things about Fooly Cooley, I am simply stumped. But this interaction always struck me as interesting. Because he basically told her, go hang out with your friends. She doesn't have any friends. She's poor, so she has to get not secondhand, day-old bread. But she hasn't heard from her boyfriend, now to his older brother. He's about to drop a real big bombshell on her. I like the cut-in between these two scenes. Naoto dropping the bombshell and Haruko snooping around. That line about overflowing, I get the sentiment behind that, but I feel like those aren't the words I would use, and it's significant for some reason. But, all this is going on. His head starts splitting open. Medical Mechanica starts doing its thing, whatever, at this time of night. It's all connected in some way, but it's all highly metaphorical. And just like that, two robots pop out of his forehead. Ho hum. Nothing strange ever happens here. Everything's ordinary. I really like the animation in this scene. It's nice and fluid. It feels weighty. It's got that nice traditional cell animation look that I like. But it's just some good stuff. And she clunks the robot on the head, and he turns from red to green. She looked like my brother. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on under the surface in Fooly Cooly. Then Naoto goes in a monologue about how only the ordinary happens, even after all the weird stuff happened. Life is strange. This scene sort of repeats what happened earlier on. Tellingly, Naoto drinks instead of throwing it away. Perhaps that's growing up. Here we have the end credits where they play "Ride On Shooting Star" by the Pillows. I really dig this song. You know, I think it's got a nice rhythm to it. It's a song that makes me feel nostalgic even though I only heard it for the first time a couple of years ago. And I like this bit they do in the end credit sequence where they take stop motion photos of a real Vespa driving through a town. It's interesting. I think ultimately one of the reasons why Fooly Cooly is so good and so well regarded is because it strikes me as a labor of love. Not, obviously it's work, but the people doing it wanted to do it. And I think, especially in art, that's something that makes a big difference. Wanting to do something it's just different from being obligated to do something. I mean, ideally both of them line up, but I don't know. When they both line up, that's when the real magic happens. You have to do something anyways, but you also want to do it. There are precious few things in life that are like that. So now we have Haruko talking about some kind of nonsense. But she's telling us the next episode is Firestarter, so... Well... That's the end of this episode. If you listened this far, thank you very much for listening. Next time I'll be commenting over episode 2 of Fooly Cooly.